There's something happening to you that nobody is talking about. You walk into a room and you already know how it's going to go. You meet someone for the first time and within 60 seconds, you feel it. Something's off. Something doesn't add up. You can't explain it. You just know. You see patterns nobody else sees. You connect dots that aren't even on the same page. You finish people's sentences before they do, not because you're arrogant, but because your brain is already 10 steps ahead. And here's the part that should stop you cold. The people around you, they've noticed. They just don't say it out loud. They pull back. They get quiet when you speak. They change their answers when you're in the room. Some of them go out of their way to undermine you, and you can't quite figure out why someone who barely knows you already acts like your enemy. Here's why. Your intelligence frightens them. Your intuition unsettles them. And your presence alone is a mirror they don't want to look into. Stay with me, because what I'm about to tell you is going to completely change the way you see yourself, the way you understand others, and the way you move through this world. 1. What extreme intelligence actually looks like. First, let's destroy the myth. Most people think extreme intelligence looks like straight A's, like a Harvard degree hanging on a wall, like someone who can recite formulas or solve equations on a whiteboard while everyone stares in awe. That's not what we're talking about. Real intelligence, the kind that actually matters in life, looks completely different. It looks like someone who learns from everything, not just books, from conversations, from failures, from people who wrong them, from their own mistakes. Every experience becomes data. Every setback becomes a lesson. While the average person repeats the same cycles over and over, the exceptionally intelligent person is constantly recalibrating. It looks like someone who asks the right questions, not the smart-sounding ones, the uncomfortable ones. The questions that make people shift in their seats because they touch something real, because they cut through the noise straight to the truth nobody wanted to name out loud. It looks like someone with a high tolerance for complexity. Most people need simple answers, black or white, yes or no. The extraordinarily intelligent mind can hold multiple contradictory ideas at the same time, examine each one honestly, and resist the urge to collapse everything into a neat conclusion just to feel comfortable. It looks like someone who is deeply aware of the room's energy, aware of what's not being said, aware of micro-expressions, of inconsistencies, of the gap between what someone claims and how they actually behave. And here's the part that should stop you cold. The people around you, they've noticed. They just don't say it out loud. They pull back. They get quiet when you speak. They change their answers when you're in the room. Some of them go out of their way to undermine you, and you can't quite figure out why someone who barely knows you already acts like your enemy. Here's why. Your intelligence frightens them. Your intuition unsettles them, and your presence alone is a mirror they don't want to look into. Stay with me, because what I'm about to tell you is going to completely change the way you see yourself, the way you understand others, and the way you move through this world. 2. The intuition nobody talks about. Now, let's talk about the thing that people find most unsettling about you. Not your knowledge, not your logic, not even your ability to dismantle an argument with precision. Your intuition. Intuition is misunderstood. Most people treat it like a feeling, something vague, unreliable, emotional. They'll say, that's just your gut. Don't trust your gut, trust the data. But here's what the science actually tells us. Intuition is not guesswork. It is pattern recognition operating at a speed your conscious mind cannot track. It is your brain, which has been silently processing thousands of signals, experiences, and observations over years, arriving at a conclusion before your rational mind can show its work. When you've been in enough situations, when you've paid close enough attention, when you've reflected deeply enough on what happened and why, your subconscious builds a library, a vast invisible archive, and your intuition is your access point to that library. This is why when you say something feels wrong, you are usually right, even when you can't explain it yet. You're not imagining things, you are detecting things, things that other people haven't noticed because they weren't paying attention in the first place. And this is what makes people uncomfortable. Because you'll see through a lie before someone finishes telling it. You'll know that a business deal is rotten before the paperwork reveals it. You'll sense that a relationship has already ended weeks, months before the other person says a word. You'll arrive at truths that take others years to discover, and you arrive there alone, without anyone validating you. In fact, with people actively telling you that you're wrong, that you're paranoid, that you're overthinking. And then time passes, and everything you said comes true. This is not luck. This is not coincidence. This is what it looks like when a highly attuned mind operates at full capacity. This is you functioning exactly as you're meant to.
3. Why they fear you. Let's be honest about something most people dance around. Not everyone in your life is rooting for you. Some of them smile to your face and quietly hope you fall. And it has nothing to do with anything you've done. It has everything to do with what you are. Here is the uncomfortable truth about human social dynamics. People fear what they cannot control. And a person with high intelligence and sharp intuition is fundamentally uncontrollable. You can't be easily manipulated because you see manipulation coming. You can't be flattered into making bad decisions because you read between the lines of every compliment. You can't be kept small by someone else's opinion of you because you have a clear enough sense of your own value. You can't be trapped in a narrative that doesn't fit because you constantly question, probe, and test the stories you're being told. And this is deeply threatening to a certain kind of person, the person who relies on other people's ignorance to maintain their position, the person who needs you to be confused in order to feel confident, the person who has built their entire identity on being the smartest one in the room until you walked in. They can feel it before they can name it. Something about you makes them uneasy. Something about you forces them to think harder, choose their words more carefully, be more honest than they're comfortable being. And instead of rising to that challenge, instead of being inspired by you, they decide to eliminate the discomfort. They try to minimize your contributions. Oh, that was obvious. Anyone would have thought of that. They question your credibility. Where did you get that from? That doesn't sound right. They pathologize your awareness. You're so paranoid. You're too sensitive. You're overthinking again. They surround themselves with people who won't challenge them and slowly push you to the margins. This is not a personal failure. This is a social dynamic as old as human civilization. The exceptional have always made the mediocre uncomfortable, and the mediocre have always organized to resist the exceptional. The question is, what do you do with that knowledge? 4. How to move when you know your power. Here is where most content like this gets it wrong. They spend 10 minutes inflating your ego, making you feel like you're special and everyone else is beneath you, and then they leave you there, angry, isolated, convinced the world is against you. That's not what we're doing here, because here is the most important thing an intelligent person can understand. Power without wisdom is just noise. Your intelligence is a gift. Your intuition is a tool, but both of them can work against you if you don't learn to wield them with intention. So let's talk about what the most powerful version of you actually looks like. First, stop explaining yourself to people who are invested in not understanding you. This is one of the biggest traps that intelligent people fall into. You feel the urge to justify, to prove, to lay out your reasoning so meticulously that surely this time they'll see what you see. They won't, not because they can't, but because understanding you would require them to change, and change is the thing they fear most. Save your energy, redirect it into action. Let your results speak in a language that requires no translation. Second, protect your intuition. Your intuition is like a compass. It is extraordinarily accurate, but it can be distorted by prolonged exposure to environments that gaslight you, dismiss you, or constantly tell you that what you perceive isn't real. If you've been in those environments long enough, you may have learned to doubt yourself, to second-guess the signals, to override the alarm bells because everyone around you told you the building wasn't on fire. Rebuilding trust in your own perception is one of the most critical things you can do. Start small. When you sense something, write it down. Don't analyze it yet, just record it, and then watch what happens over time. You will be stunned by how consistently you were right. Third, surround yourself with people who can handle you. Not people who worship you, not people who flatter you, people who can challenge you. People who are secure enough in themselves that your brilliance doesn't threaten them, it excites them. These people are rare, but they exist, and one conversation with someone who can actually meet you intellectually is worth 1,000 conversations with people who make you dumb yourself down just to be accepted. Find your people, and when you find them, invest. Fourth, learn the art of strategic restraint. This is the hardest one, because when you see something clearly, when you know the answer, when you see the problem before anyone else has registered it, every instinct you have says, speak, say it, show them. But the wisest, most powerful people in any room have learned something counterintuitive. Knowing everything and showing everything are two very different things. Let people arrive at their own conclusions when possible. Ask questions instead of delivering answers. Create space for others to think, even if you're already 3 chapters ahead. This is not dishonesty. This is mastery. Because the person who makes you feel brilliant in their presence is infinitely more powerful than the person who makes you feel small by comparison. Intelligence that elevates others is the kind of intelligence that builds empires. Fifth, never shrink to make someone else comfortable. This is the one I want you to tattoo somewhere in your mind. The temptation when you realize that your presence makes people uncomfortable, when you understand that your intelligence triggers insecurity in others, is to make yourself smaller, quieter, less, to dim down your light so that others don't have to confront their own darkness. Don't. Not because you don't care about others, but because shrinking never actually helps them. It just delays their reckoning, and it destroys you in the process. You were not built to fit quietly into a box that was designed for someone smaller. You were built to expand, to push edges, to see farther and ask more and go deeper. The world doesn't need a dimmer version of you. The world, your family, your community, your industry, this generation needs you at full power.
I want to leave you with something real. The smartest people I've ever encountered don't walk around announcing their intelligence. They don't need to. It shows up in the way they listen, in the questions they ask, in the calm they hold in moments of chaos, in the grace with which they handle being misunderstood. And they've all shared one experience in common. At some point, someone tried to convince them they were too much, too intense, too aware, too something. And the turning point, the moment that changed everything, was the day they decided that was not a problem to fix. It was a power to own. So if you've been dimming your light, stop. If you've been second-guessing what you know, stop. If you've been waiting for someone to finally validate what you've always sensed about yourself, this is it. You don't need their permission. You don't need their understanding. You don't even need their belief. You are exactly who you think you are. And the only question left is, what you gonna do with that?